This is a type of speech that you may be asked to give as an executive that you're not expecting. And so, with this time today, I want to give you some help so that you never have to wonder what to do if someone ever asks you to deliver this. Because if they ask you to deliver this, not only is it important that you show up as a leader, but you have a whole other set of responsibility if you're asked to speak and deliver someone's eulogy. If you don't know how to do it, you will after this. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Sam Linton Show, the podcast designed to help you shift your mindset, find your voice, and change your world. Sam is a pastor, coach, and expert communicator, helping leaders and entrepreneurs like you step into their purpose, speak with confidence, and make a lasting difference.
All right, so we're going to break a little bit from the boardroom and go to the chance, and there is a large chance, if you're a leader, if you have been in any executive role for a long time, you will have known a lot of different people and had the privilege of seeing them in very unique situations. So today I want to talk to you about the most unique type of speaking situation you will find yourself in as an executive, and that is what happens if you have to deliver someone's eulogy. Yes, you heard me right, eulogy. That means that they've died and the family looks at you as a person that knew that person well, or they want you to speak about that person because of how you dealt with them, or maybe your closeness with them, or you are asked to contribute among a list of speakers. Like we just saw, and again, I don't want to keep bringing it up, but we just saw Charlie Kirk's memorial. And they had, now how many speakers? It was a lot. There was a lot of people speaking. And each person had about 8 minutes. The president had a little bit more. His wife obviously had a little bit more, but each person had to get up and they had a small amount of time with which to deliver their eulogy. Now, not everybody there that spoke was like his best friend, but they all had to deliver something personal and they all had a lot of people looking at them. So I thought about this when I was watching that memorial, and I wonder how many executives have to speak at a eulogy. Because if you are in a leadership role, there's a really good chance that people will feel honored if you were to speak about somebody that has died that worked for you. As long as you had a good relationship, obviously. If you were a bad boss, they're probably not going to ask you to speak at the eulogy. But I want to give you a reason why this is important. Because number one, as a leader, this is an opportunity for you to show that you are caring of the people that you have working on your team. This gives you the right to be able to say, look, I cared about that person. I love that person. I mean, I really did. I gave their eulogy, right? And the second thing this is an opportunity for you to really demonstrate leadership in a difficult time. And no better way to do it than when you're communicating through a eulogy. So I'm going to give you a couple things. Now, again, full disclosure, if you don't know this, I'm a pastor full-time. That's what I do for my main job. I've been a pastor for 21 years. So when I say I've delivered hundreds and hundreds of eulogies, I am not exaggerating. It's hundreds and hundreds, all right, because the church I deal with is pretty large, and I've dealt with people that are outside of the church. I've done their eulogies. I've done my family members' eulogies. I've done eulogies this week. My father-in-law went home to the Lord. I did his eulogy. So when I say I know eulogies inside and out, I've messed them up, I've done well with them, and I've kind of got some formulas that work. So trust me, this is up there with one of the things that I feel most comfortable trying to help you with. So the goal of the eulogy, keep this in mind. I'm going to give you the goal of a eulogy, is you're doing a couple things. Number one, you are honoring, and I'm going to tell you why I have to say this. You're honoring the person that has died. I know you're like, duh, that's what a eulogy is. I know. But You'd be surprised how many people get this wrong. We'll talk about that in a minute. The second purpose is that you are there to comfort those who are grieving. That person that is speaking is there to offer something of comfort, a commercial break from what they've been dealing with their grief. And then if it's in the inspirational side, you're there to inspire hope. Maybe give them a story that they can connect to and anchor to about that loved one. So it's not a PR speech. It's not something that you're reading. It's not about the speaker. And I'm going to give you the common mistakes that I've seen, because if I've delivered hundreds of eulogies, I've seen hundreds of people deliver eulogies. And I will tell you the biggest thing that people go wrong with, or the biggest things I should say. Number one, people that do eulogies will often use this as an opportunity to talk about themselves. Don't bloody do it. Don't do it. The worst eulogy I was ever at was when I first started working for the church. I was delivering eulogy. I already been trained on how to do eulogies. I'd had some under my belt at this point, and I watched the gentleman who was helping to do the eulogy, speaking for the family, and I was coming up to do the service. This person got up. They spoke about their loved one, and the only thing that they said about him that was about him was his name. Everything else this person said was about him. So when I met John, I'm just going to say John, it's so long ago, I don't remember what the person's name was. When I met John, my mother introduced me to him when I was 7 years old. And my mom, she was a disciplinarian. She was a German, you see, and she's got that strong accent, and she was a good cook. Do you ever have good German food made by a German? Does anybody know what that's like? I remember one Christmas my mom made blah, 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 and all we heard about was this guy. And John was an illustration to this guy's story. And this guy was working out his own life's story on John's casket. I'm just telling you, I've seen this too many times. Your job there is not to elevate yourself. You can mention how you met that person. You can mention your interaction with that person, but you have to transition that interaction into honoring that person. That's what you're there for. If you find yourself talking about you, even and again, not to mention it's fresh, but with my father-in-law, I was really careful with the eulogy. Do I have 1,000 stories? I've been married to my wife for almost 20 years. Do I have 1,000 stories personal about my father-in-law? Of course. But what did I do? I talked about him. I talked about my wife. I talked about his son. I talked about my father-in-law's habits and quirks and different things. I mentioned some personal stories connecting me to him, but it was always in relationship to him, because I've seen these eulogies go sideways. All right, next mistake. Don't make it ceremonial. If it's stiff and impersonal, if you get up and you read just different readings that aren't connected to people, it's not going to connect. People want to hear about that person. This may be the last time some of the people in that room hear anything mentioned in a concerted way about this person again. So it's important that you elevate that person, but you don't want to be stiff and impersonal. It's really important that you stay focused on being real. If you were asked to give a eulogy, you're there because they believe the family or even the person that died may have asked you to give the eulogy. They have you there because they think that you have a personal stake in making sure that this person is honored. So you want to make sure that it is, in fact, personal. So you don't want to be overly ceremonial. Next of all with that, you don't want to bring up bad blood or awkward situations. You want to make sure you keep it as conflict-free as possible. With the exception, and there's exceptions where you have to address things. Maybe if there was something really controversial about how they died, and now we're into pastoral ministry and not into executive leadership, there's ways that you can handle that that's not bringing up bad blood. But if you want to bring up, like, John really, really hated his sister, and now I see that they're together, and this is a time to put your bad blood aside. No. You're not going to solve the world's problems. In fact, usually what happens at funerals is that the problems that existed before the person died only become elevated at the funeral. It kind of comes to a head, so to speak. And I hate to tell you that, but again, I've been doing this a long time, dealt with tons and tons of families in grief. It doesn't magically go away by death. Death doesn't solve drama. It tends to bring it up stronger. So keep the drama low. Focus on honoring the person. Make it sincere enough that you do it in a way where you're not inflating them, where it's like, oh, he was the best person in the world. He was awesome. He was the, nobody ever existed better than him. Nobody ever did, no, that's not true. So you want to be specific without exaggeration. And so another thing that'll help you, and this is my cheat sheet, and I'm really giving you my cheat sheet now. What helps me when I think of what to say is I break everybody's life up into several areas. I'm going to give them to you quickly. I talk about their work, what they did, maybe their upbringing, their background as a part of their work, like what they like to do. I talk about hobbies, what they enjoy doing. I talk about their character. What would you use to describe them? What words? I talk about their family relationships and their traditions with family and their friends. Like who did they like hanging out with? What did they like do with Christmas? I try to paint a picture of them that way. And then last and not least, again, because I'm a pastor, I usually end with some sort of a focus on their spirituality if they had any. If they didn't, I don't say anything there. If they were anti-God and didn't care about Jesus, I'm not going to say they love Jesus so much. I'm just going to be strangely silent at that particular moment. And that's just for the eulogy. Now, when I'm saying eulogy, one final thing to qualify before I actually tell you what to do is I'm talking about the personal stuff that you say about a person, not necessarily the scriptural things, the service. That's a separate discussion. I don't think many of you will be asked to do that, but if you are, you could just hit me up at podcast@samuellinton.com. I will give you some ideas on how to outline that, but I'm talking about the personal stuff. So remember, think about work, background, hobbies, character, family relationships, family traditions, and also spiritual stuff. And also, in between all of those segments, I look for stories, funny stories, interesting stories, unique stories, different things. So I one time did a eulogy for somebody that performed on Johnny Carson. All right, that's a big deal. It's a story. It doesn't fit into those other things. So I said, hey, this guy was a guest on Johnny Carson back in 1970, whatever. And that was cool. Who can say that? Who can say they were a guest on Johnny Carson, right? So, yeah. Anyway, coming back to it. What do we do? So here's some things to keep in mind. What makes a good eulogy? All right, number one, you want to magnify. Magnify the person in an authentic way. Magnify the family in an appropriate way. So you're not magnifying you at all, but you want to magnify. You want to build them up. You want to be bragging about them, who they were. And then brag about their relationship to their family. Even if you're an executive, oh man, every time John would come into, poor John, he's dying a lot here. Every time John would come into work, I would say, what was your weekend like, John? And he would say, oh man, me and my wife, we hung out all week. I love when I'm with her. I love when I'm with the kids. Build them up. If he comes in and says, oh, me and my wife have marriage problems, don't bring it up at the eulogy. Remember, don't bring up John's bad blood. Don't do that. All right? So you want to magnify and you want to lift up the family in any way you can. Mention them, honor them. I know you did so much for him. He was sick. I know you cared so much. You want to show that you see the family. They'll appreciate that. When I'm doing a eulogy, I will often point them out. You were an amazing wife. He shared such great times with his grandchildren. I will call them out. It will be a unique time for you to care for them in a way you'll never be able to do again because they're spotlighted at such an intense time of emotional need. And you're showing them that even beyond the grave, this person is honoring them and cared about them. It's a great opportunity. It really is. And as an executive, if you can pull this off, it really shows a care in your leadership. Next, sounds counterintuitive, but for crying out loud, say something funny. I mean, gosh, I can't tell you how many eulogies I've been to, and how many hundreds and hundreds of times where people are just excited to laugh. There's an episode of the show, and you're going to think I'm 100 years old, but I'm not. I grew up, my mom always said I was born too late. So I used to watch obsessively the show Mary Tyler Moore. I loved Mary Tyler Moore. And one of the most famous episodes of the Mary Tyler Moore show was a episode where she goes to a funeral for a clown, a famous clown. And everybody up to that moment, they were all making jokes about the clown. And, they were talking about the jokes they'd make about the clown before they went to the funeral. And she was really angry. She's like, this isn't funny. The clown, he's dead. And it's such a funny thing. Well, then when she gets to the funeral, she cannot stop laughing. That people are getting up and doing the eulogy, and she's laughing, and she can't help herself. Like she's like literally crying, hysterically laughing. It's one of the funniest things. And then the guy that's doing the eulogy points and says, look, it's okay. I know you're laughing. It's okay. You're enjoying this clown, Chuckles the clown. Why don't you stand up and tell us something funny about him? And when she's put on the spot, she bursts into tears. It's one of the funniest, most well-written misdirections in comedy that I have ever seen. And it is fitting because in a funeral, people actually want to enjoy a commercial break from crying. They want to hear something when it's appropriate, right? Like when it's appropriate. Like you're not working on your stand-up comedy routine, but if there's something funny about that person that can elevate them and magnify them, humor actually brings healing. That's why a lot of times people will say laughter is the best medicine. Next thing, you want to focus on the family. Again, you're not focused on you, you're focused on them. So the more you can talk about the family, the more you can elevate them, the more you can talk about stories that had nothing to do with you that connect to them, it's going to make you come across as a way more empathetic speaker. You want to lift up the family in any way that you see fit. You want to make sure that you are not reading and not feeling it. So I'd rather you have note cards. You already know, if you've been listening to me for any amount of time, you know I'm really against reading. So, and if you have to get up and read a prepared statement, you can. But even on the eulogies that I do, I have everything written out because I'll have 2 days to get to know people that I don't know them all that well. But I have bullet points, I'll write hunting or I'll write bingo or something. And then I will try to recall it naturally so that I'm not reading those stories. Even the stories that they tell me, I will try to tell them my own way so that it doesn't come across like I'm painting a picture with somebody else's brush. It helps if you keep it real. And then the last thing is, any way that you can, try to focus on the person's legacy, what good that they did, why their life has mattered, how to be aware of our own mortality because we've lost this person. Funerals, a lot of people, I know because I've done enough of them. Every time I do a funeral, I think at some point that's going to be me in that box. At some point, my children are going to be crying over me. My wife will be crying over me, hopefully, before I cry over her, right? So, it forces you to think about these heavier, lofty things that we don't often think about when we're living the day-to-day. So don't be afraid to focus on somebody's legacy and how we should better ourselves as a result of knowing John and humility. So I wanted to share this with you because, again, I've been in funeral mode this week, but I've also realized that as a leader, you have a lot of influence and you have a lot of opportunity here to do really good and come across as a person that is caring. And again, you're like, this isn't my style. I'm kind of more formulaic. Well, this is a time for people to see a side of you that is caring. Because remember, I hate to use a cliche, but they've said this about teachers. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Well, I would say the same applies to leaders. If you're a leader of an organization and somebody wants you in this sacred space, you better show them that you care. You could do so by communicating in a way that affects them deeply. So if somebody asked you to do the eulogy, just take these tips, apply them, and you'll do great. You'll do 10 times better than most people ever will just by shifting a couple of these things. So that has been this week at the Sam Linton Show. So until next time, shift your mindset, find your voice, change your world. We'll see you soon.